The Hand of the Necromancer by Brad Strickland, Chapter 12. They stopped at the intersection of Saltonstall and Main Streets, gasping for breath. He's not following us, is he? Panted Johnny. His lungs felt as if they were on fire. Sarah shook her head. Her face was red from exertion, making her freckles appear pale. She gasped, Dixon, I see what you mean about Murgle. He looks like something out of a Boris Karloff horror movie. A harsh cackling made them both start. It came from over their heads. A crow had landed high on a nearby maple, its shoulders hunched, and its beaky head bobbing. It made a chattery caw-caw-caw noise, as if it were laughing scornfully. Goosebumps prickled Johnny's arms. Was it the same bird that had perched on old Murgle's window? It very well might be. Get out of here! Sarah stooped, picked up a pebble, and with a quick sidearm throw sent it whooshing through the foliage. 5 or 6 leaves came whirling lazily down, but Sarah missed her target by inches. As she stooped for more ammunition, the crow flapped its wings and took off. And in a moment, it was a black speck in the sky above the hilltop. I think we'd better move along, said Sarah. They lost no time, heading for Fillmore Street. Johnny and Sarah went straight to Professor Childermass's house. Johnny rang the doorbell, but no one answered. That was strange, because the maroon Pontiac was in the garage. Johnny turned the knob and found the front door was not locked. I'm going to check this out, he said. He pushed the door open and went inside. Professor? He yelled. Hey, Professor Childermass? No one was home. After the warm sun, the inside of the old stucco house was cool and dim. They looked in the kitchen. That's strange, Sarah said. On the kitchen table was a cup half full of black coffee and a plate that held part of a bacon, lettuce, and tomato sandwich. Johnny touched the cup. It's cold. What happened to him? It's like the mystery ship, the Mary Celeste, Sarah said. Johnny had read the haunting true story of the abandoned ship once, so he knew what she meant. The Mary Celeste was a sailing vessel that someone found drifting and deserted back in the 19th century. According to the legend, the salvagers who boarded the Mary Celeste discovered a half-eaten meal in the galley, but not a living soul was aboard. They towed the ship to port, but no one ever learned what became of the ship's officers and crew. They had all vanished into thin air. Johnny and Sarah searched the house. Professor Childermass was not home, but they saw no evidence that the burglar had returned. I don't like this, Johnny said. The two of them went back downstairs. They closed the door behind them and hurried across to Johnny's house. Grandma Dixon made tomato soup and egg salad sandwiches for lunch, but as she served them, she said she had no idea where the professor was. He might have gone to visit Dr. Coote, she offered. I saw Dr. Coote over there a couple days ago. After lunch, Johnny tried to telephone Dr. Coote, but no one answered. Then he put a call to the University of New Hampshire, where Dr. Coote taught. A receptionist told him that Dr. Coote was away for a couple of weeks, first to take care of some final details about the publication of his voodoo book, and then to fly to England to do some research on medieval magic. Johnny thanked her and hung up. Come on, he told Sarah grimly. I don't like the professor just disappearing like this, and I know someone who can help us. They went to St. Michael's Church, and Johnny rang the rectory doorbell. At first, no one answered, and from inside the house, Johnny could hear the sound of a guitar and a strong voice singing the old Irish rebellion song, The Rising of the Moon. He knocked on the door, and the music stopped. A moment later, Father Higgins answered the door. He was not in his priestly vestments. He wore green army fatigue pants and a plaid cotton shirt. Well, he said, what brings you two here? You're Sarah Channing, aren't you? I'm glad to welcome your family to the parish. Sarah grinned self-consciously. Thank you, she murmured. Johnny had held in the story as long as he could. He gasped it out in one breath, concluding, and now the professor's gone, but his house is unlocked, and there's a cup of coffee and a sandwich he didn't even finish. With a smile, Father Higgins held up his hand. Easy, John. Maybe this Mr. Murgle is not a very nice man, and maybe he rigged something to scare people away from his house, but he hasn't kidnapped Roderick. It so happens I know Professor Childermass isn't home, and I know why. Come in and relax for a moment, and I'll tell you. Father Higgins led them into the study, into the stuffy old-fashioned parlor of the rectory. Curved iron fixtures projected from the walls. They had once been gas lights, but now they were wired for electricity and held small tulip-shaped bulbs under tiny green shades. Religious pictures and a crucifix hung on the walls, and on the mantel was a big black and white framed photograph of a much younger Father Higgins and his mother. The air smelled faintly of incense. Beside Father Higgins' armchair rested his old battered guitar. The priest made Johnny and Sarah sit on the saggy sofa while he rummaged through some papers on an end table. "Here we are," he said. "This came in the afternoon mail." He passed the paper to Johnny. "You should read it." It was a badly typed letter done on a faded black ribbon with lots of strikeovers. July 25. Dear Father Higgins, I am taking a short trip. ADN crossed out, and I wanted to let you KON crossed out know, so you could tell all my friends THT that I am all right. This business about the burglary and the magic hand has upset me, so I am going TOT crossed out to take the train to Vermont, get in some fishing and some reflection, and see if I can calm down. I will see you in a week or so. The letter was signed Roderick Childermass in blue fountain pen ink. Below that, also in blue ink, was a P.S. I may not return by Friday, so please make sure the card is delivered. Johnny looked up from the letter. This doesn't look like Professor Childermass's way of writing a letter, he objected. It looks like his banged-up old royal typewriter to me, said Father Higgins. And you know how he tries to type so fast with 2 fingers that he's always jamming the keys and having to cross out misspellings anyway. That's certainly his signature. Johnny had to admit that was true. Then he asked, "What does he mean about the card?" Father Higgins took the letter. "That has to do with you, actually. Last Saturday, Rod came to see me because he said a very irritating man had moved into town, and he was afraid he would have to do something about it." Johnny and Sarah exchanged a glance. Father Higgins must have misunderstood their look. "I don't think the professor was considering lynching anyone or burning down anyone's house. Probably he was thinking about having his phone unlisted or something like that. Or maybe he just planned to get out of town to let his famous temper simmer down. Anyway, he left an envelope and asked me to see that you got it before Friday. It's in my study. I'll be right back." He left them alone. Sarah sighed. There goes the Mary Celeste theory. I had it figured that supernatural forces had kidnapped the professor. "Maybe not supernatural forces," whispered Johnny. Frowning, Sarah said, "Oh, come on, Dixon. The prof says he's off fishing. My dad's like that. Give him half a chance, and he grabs his rods and reels and heads for the nearest damp spot." Johnny shook his head. "No, Professor Childermass doesn't fish much because he doesn't have the patience. And he wouldn't just take off without letting me know or cleaning up his kitchen. He can be a pretty sloppy housekeeper, but he never leaves food out to attract bugs." Father Higgins returned and handed Johnny a square envelope. "Here you are." Johnny opened the envelope. It held a dime store birthday card with a cartoon cake on the front. The colorful cake looked about 9 feet tall, and huge red and blue and yellow candles stuck out of it, dripping wax all over. Inside, the message read, "Here's a big cake to go with your big day. Happy birthday." Beneath that, Professor Childermass had scrawled, "Dear Johnny, I take this occasion to wish you many happy returns. To make the day fun, I have hidden your present. Here's your clue. Way up high and ear to the sky, a line nearby, the package lies. Where billows rise, I certainly hope I've given you a hand. Happy birthday. Always your friend, Roderick Childermass." Johnny's heart sank. He looked up at the priest. Father Higgins stared at him. "Why, John, what's wrong?" In a trembling voice, Johnny said, "The professor almost never calls me Johnny, and it isn't my birthday. My birthday's not for months. Oh, Father Higgins, don't you see? The professor's in trouble. Terrible, terrible trouble." And that's the end of chapter 12.